I'm Diana Eden, costume designer. How I got started? Well, I came kind of a long route through being a dancer first. At age 15, I was in a ballet company, the National Ballet of Canada. And then I grew too tall for ballet, so I had a very short-lived career in ballet. Ended up going to university and studying history of art. And then I couldn't get the dancing bug out of me, so I went to New York and I was a dancer on Broadway and danced in a number of shows, and then became an actress and did a number of national companies, toured around. Throughout this, I had always had an interest in design and had always had my sewing machine with me and created things. And through really a chance situation, I met someone who was a producer for Anne Margaret's nightclub act up in Las Vegas. And it was a very big act at the time with dancers and singers and sets and costumes. And the person who hired me said, well, you've been a dancer, so you know what dancers need. And I said, I guess so. So that's basically my first job, handling costumes as a costume person, not as a performer. And through that, through Anne Margaret, I came into Elizabeth Courtney Costumes and met Bob and Ray and Rhett and Pete Menefee, and that's where I got my training, basically. I consider I'm from the school of Elizabeth Courtney's. No, I never studied it. As a teenager, I loved to sew, and even as a dancer on Broadway, I used to bring my sewing machine in backstage, and between matinee and evening show, I would make a dress. I had a line of dresses that I used to shop around to all the dancers in the Broadway shows. Well, I think just from having done it and enjoyed doing it, and then quite honestly, working at Elizabeth Courtney Costumes. I would go upstairs and I would, in the workroom, and I would see those cutters and fitters and seamstresses and stitchers and beaters, and I was just amazed. And I would be, you know, little fly on the wall in the fittings, and I'd watch Bob work with the actors and actresses. And I mean, I really say that everything I learned about costume design for TV and film came from Bob, Ray, Rhett, and Pete. Well, when I got my very first TV show as the designer, I worked for 5 years as an assistant to Bob or Rhett or Pete. And when I got The Facts of Life, I interviewed for it. It was already in its 5th season. And, but I had made an impression on somebody who interviewed me, and I got the job. And I had 3 years on that. That was my first show, and loved it. So I think by the time the 2nd year, 3rd year Facts of Life, I was off and running. I got another series on the same lot, and then another series, and you know, and then it just kind of went from there. One leads to another, leads to another. I have a tender spot for The Facts of Life because it was my first, and because we were such a family, such a family. I loved doing the TV series of A League of Their Own, which only aired 3 episodes, but was so much fun because it was 1940s and it was all the original people from the film working again to reproduce it only in TV form. Penny Marshall and Tom Hanks and Gary Marshall. I mean, it was incredible. And I got to visit all the vintage stores in LA and buy the best pieces they had. So that was really fun. And then I loved doing episodic drama, even though the hours are killer. I loved doing Sweet Justice with Cicely Tyson and Melissa Gilbert, and I loved doing Family Law with Tony Danza and Dixie Carter and Kathleen Quinlan, because the scripts were great, you were filming them like a film, the actors were top-level actors, and I mean, it nearly killed you because it was You know, we took 7 days to film an hour's worth. And then as soon as the 7th day happened, whether it was a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, the very next day you started the next episode. So it's exhausting, but I felt the work very challenging. And so yes, I love that. Well, obviously you do the research, but I think so much of it is already in the script. And then after you've done the obvious basic research, I also think the actor is so important to the way you end up going. And that's why I really love actors, and I love the interaction, and I always hope to have as much fitting time with them personally to kind of find that rapport with them. And for instance, on The Facts of Life, I started out costuming Charlotte Rae, and then she left the series and was replaced by Cloris Leachman, who couldn't be more different. And I learned a great deal from Cloris, because Cloris, as crazy as she is, God bless her, is a very instinctive actress. And when I allowed myself to listen to her and not just say, oh, I'm the designer here, this is what you're going to wear. When I let her in, she really inspired me. And that was very early in my career. But I find the character through the script and the actor. I don't know that I have anything terribly unique to say about that. It's because it all just happens, and in TV and film it happens very fast. I can't wait to get my hands on the script. The first time I'm just like someone who hasn't eaten in a week, and I want to see what I've got myself into. And then I go through the script again and I mark things that I think are relevant. And then I talk with the director and get the director's vision, because he or she is the person I'm ultimately going to have to satisfy. And then I talk to the actors, and then I start shopping or making or sketching or renting. And it's very hard to kind of say this is what I do, because as I got more and more experience, it became more organic. It came to the point where I knew by 10 minutes into the fitting that I was in the sweet spot, you know? Not every time, because obviously you have disasters, but I could feel it when it was going well. And I said, yeah, I did get this person. And I did make the right choices, and he or she is happy, and it's working, and I can do this. Which is a good feeling, because, you know, like many artists, I'm, you know, deeply insecure and always think it's a big mistake. I shouldn't have been hired. So when I get to that sweet spot, it's very gratifying. Advice for aspiring costume designers. I actually like that question very much, because I've done a lot of mentoring, and I have a ton. An earful, which is to be more passionate than everyone else, to work harder than everyone else, to be more curious than everyone else, to be hungry for research, not to narrow what you think you want to do, but to just open yourself up to every possible aspect, to be just enormously curious. I mean, that's basically it. I do talk to a lot of people about specifically how to break in the business, and, you know, I tell them to try and find a mentor, try and network, try and offer your services for free to, you know, come. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I mean in the beginning, because if someone comes helps me on, maybe I'm doing a charity event or something, and they're there and they're willing and they're listening and I get a sense of them. And so the next time where I have a job where there is money involved, they might be the first person I think of. And some of the most successful people that I have mentored have been the ones that have just been persistent, been consistent, and just energetic in their passion for the work.